He walked away like he'd taken the last piece of me with him. And for a while, I believed I'd never get it back. The day I first saw Alex, I was rushing through the crowded hallway, late for class, as always. It felt like any other day at my new school. Until I felt it, that weight of someone's gaze on me. I looked up, and there he was, leaning against his locker like he belonged there, like the world revolved around him. His leather jacket hung loose over his shoulders, his hair a mess of soft, careless curls. He didn't move, didn't even blink, just watched me with that quiet smirk, the kind that steals your breath before you even realize it. "Hey," he said, voice smooth, low. "You're the new guy, right?" It wasn't really a question, more like he already knew. "Yeah," I managed. "Jake!" "Alex." He didn't shake my hand, just nodded, his eyes holding mine like he could see straight through me. "You lost or something?" I shook my head, even though I was. Completely. "Cool." That smirk deepened. "See you around, Jake." And with that, he pushed off the locker and walked away. Slow, unhurried, like time moved differently for him. I stood there, heart racing, unsure why a single look from him had left me feeling like the floor had shifted. Later that day, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he looked at me, curious, certain, like he already knew I'd matter somehow. I told myself it didn't mean anything. I had enough to worry about. New school, new faces, new mistakes to avoid. But every time I turned a corner, he was there, watching, waiting. That same smirk playing at his lips like he was in on a secret I didn't know. By the final bell, I was restless, more aware of him than I wanted to be. I told myself he was just another guy, but deep down I knew he wasn't. The next day after school, I wandered the halls trying to escape the noise. I needed quiet and space to think. That's when I found it, the old playroom behind the gym. Dusty, forgotten, sunlight spilling through cracked windows. Perfect. I sank into an old couch, opened a book, and let the silence wrap around me. For the first time since I'd arrived, I could finally breathe. Then the door creaked open. I looked up, expecting a teacher. But of course, it was Alex. His eyes lit with surprise when he saw me, though the smirk stayed. "Well, well," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Didn't know this place was taken." I tried to act calm, even as my pulse jumped. "Just reading," I said. "Mind if I join you?" He asked, already crossing the room before I could answer. He dropped onto the couch beside me, close. Too close. I shifted slightly, but it didn't help. The air felt heavier now. "Is there something you need?" I asked. He chuckled softly. "No, just curious about the new kid who hides in forgotten corners." I didn't answer. But he didn't stop. His gaze moved from my book to my face. Slow, searching, deliberate. "You're always so quiet," he said after a moment. "What's your story, Jake?" I swallowed hard. "Not much to tell." "Sure about that?" he murmured, his voice dropping lower. He reached forward, slid the book gently from my lap, set it aside, and looked straight into my eyes. "I think there's more to you than meets the eye." Something in the way he said it, steady, sure, made the air between us hum. And before I could think, he closed the distance. His lips brushed mine, soft at first, testing like a question. My breath caught. It was tender, hesitant, until it wasn't. The kiss deepened, slow, giving way to something that burned quiet and fierce. I felt my hands move, into his hair, against his shoulders, pulling him closer without meaning to. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathless, foreheads resting together, caught in the stillness of it. "I've wanted to do that for a while," Alex whispered, voice rough with honesty. I blinked, still trying to catch up. You have?" He smiled, not his usual smirk, but something softer. "Yeah, but you're not exactly easy to approach." I laughed, shaky, nervous. "I guess I just didn't think. I mean, you're Alex. You could have anyone." "Anyone but you," he said quietly. "You're different, Jake, and I like that." Before I could respond, he leaned in again, his lips finding mine, certain this time. And just like that, I was gone, lost in him. In the way the world seemed to melt away until there was nothing but the warmth of his hands, the steady rhythm of his breath, the quiet truth between us. The days after that were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about him. He was everywhere, in the halls, at lunch, in class. Every glance, every smile, every accidental touch felt charged with something unspoken. It wasn't long before I found him, or maybe he found me, back in the playroom. "Didn't think you'd be back," he said, closing the door behind him. His tone teased, but his eyes told a different story. "I like it here," I said softly. It wasn't the place I liked, it was him. The way this room felt like ours, like a secret carved out of the noise of the world. He crossed the room, sat beside me, close enough for our knees to touch. My heart thudded in my chest. "About the other day," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about it." "Me neither," I admitted. That was all it took. He reached out, his hand finding the back of my neck, and pulled me into another kiss. This one wasn't hesitant or soft. It was hungry, certain, like every moment we'd waited for this one. And I kissed him back, every thought, every doubt slipping away. Then he broke the kiss, breathless, his forehead pressed to mine. This is dangerous, Jake. I knew what he meant. The risk, the fear of being seen. The way something this fragile could shatter if anyone found out. But in that moment, I didn't care. "I don't care," I whispered. "I want this." His eyes darkened, his expression torn. "We have to be careful," he said, voice strained. "No one can know?" "About us," I nodded. Even though hiding it hurt, I understood. This was real, and real things were worth protecting. "Okay," I said finally. "Just us, no one else." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, just us." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The quiet between us was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was alive, and even with the risk, even with the fear, I couldn't stop the small smile pulling at my lips. Because for the first time in a long time, this felt right. "Come on," Alex said softly, standing and holding out his hand. "Let's get out of here before someone finds us." I took his hand, the warmth of his skin grounding me as we slipped through the empty halls. And as we walked side by side, hearts unsteady but sure, I realized something. This wasn't just a moment. It was a beginning. Something real. Something that could change everything. And even knowing that, I couldn't bring myself to let go, right? We thought we were being careful. But high school is a small world. Too small for secrets like ours. And it wasn't long before our little bubble started to crack. It happened on a Friday afternoon. The air buzzed with that restless end-of-week energy, people laughing, slamming lockers, racing for freedom. Alex and I had slipped into our routine, the one that had become our quiet rebellion, meeting in the old playroom after last period, our sanctuary. The only place where we didn't have to pretend. We sat close on the couch, shoulders brushing. He was flipping through some old, tattered magazine, his fingers tracing faded ink. I had a book open on my lap, but I couldn't read a single word. My mind was on the warmth of his body beside mine, the way silence with him somehow felt full. "So, what are you doing this weekend?" Alex asked, voice casual, but there was something else in it. A hint of hope, or maybe hesitation. I shrugged, trying to sound relaxed. "Nothing much, you?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Probably hanging out with the guys. They've been trying to drag me to Mark's party." Then he looked at me, really looked at me. "You should come." It caught me off guard. "To the party?" He grinned, but there was a flicker of nerves behind it. "Yeah, could be fun." I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, the door creaked open. The sound sliced through the quiet like glass breaking. We both froze. Footsteps echoed. "Alex? You in here?" The voice was unmistakable. James, one of Alex's closest friends. The kind of guy who noticed everything. My chest tightened. Panic surged. Alex's hand brushed mine, a warning or maybe reassurance, and then he leaned back, casual, calm, the picture of innocence. "Yeah, I'm here," he called out, his voice steady. James stepped inside, eyes narrowing as he scanned the room. "What are you doing in here?" Alex shrugged, easy. "Just needed a break from the noise." James's gaze flicked to me, assessing, suspicious. "With the new kid?" His tone was sharp, probing. I forced a weak smile. "I was just leaving, actually." Alex picked it up instantly. "Yeah, Jake was helping me with some homework. He's good at that stuff." James didn't look convinced. "Right. Well, the guys are waiting. We're heading out." "Cool," Alex said, already walking over, but before leaving, he turned back. Just a quick glance, too quick for anyone else to notice. Catch you later, Jake. My heart thudded against my ribs. Yeah, later. When the door finally clicked shut, I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for hours. That was too close. Way too close. I sat there in the stillness, the weight of what just happened pressing down on me. For the first time, I realized how fragile this was, how easily it could all come crashing down. We'd been careful. But clearly not careful enough, still. Even fear couldn't erase what I felt for him. It wasn't just about the stolen moments or the way his lips made everything else fade away. It was about him. And that was something I wasn't ready to let go of. So, I made a decision. If we were going to survive this, we'd have to be smarter. Because losing Alex wasn't an option, but after that day, something in him shifted. The laughter faded. The smirks came less often. When I found him in the playroom again, he wasn't lounging on the couch. He was pacing, agitated, restless, his fingers raking through his hair. "Alex?" I said softly, closing the door. "What's going on?" He stopped, looked at me. And for once, the boy who always had something clever to say looked lost. "We need to talk, Jake." The way he said it made my chest tighten. "Okay, about what?" He sat down, motioning for me to join him, but the space between us felt different now. Wider. "I've been thinking," he started, voice low. "About us?" 2 words. But they hit like a punch. He sighed, eyes flicking toward me, then away. "James is suspicious. He hasn't said anything yet, but I can tell he's watching. If he figures it out, he didn't finish." He didn't have to. I swallowed hard. "We've been careful. No one knows, not yet," he said quietly. "But how long until they do?" The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush us both. "What are you saying?" I whispered. He finally met my eyes. "I'm saying we need to be more careful. No more meeting here. No more risks. We need to lay low for a while." The thought of not seeing him, of losing that piece of the day that was ours, made my stomach twist, but I nodded. "Okay," I murmured. "We'll be careful." He let out a slow breath, the tension in his shoulders easing just a little. "Good," but something in his eyes still flickered. "Something raw, Alex," I said gently, reaching out, my fingers brushing his arm. "What's really going on?" He flinched, but didn't move away. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then quietly, he spoke. "It's my family." His voice cracked on the word. "Things at home aren't great." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking anywhere but at me. "My dad's been on my case about everything. School, friends, who I'm hanging out with. He thinks I'm wasting my life, not living up to my potential. Whatever the hell that means." I watched him, my chest aching, realizing that the walls he'd built around himself weren't just about secrecy. They were about survival, together. "Is that why you've been so distant?" I asked softly. He nodded, his expression tight. "Yeah, I don't know how to deal with it. And then there's this," he gestured between us, his voice catching. "It's a lot, Jake, more than I thought it would be." I swallowed, my heart aching. I wanted to fix it, to take some of the weight off his shoulders, but I didn't know how. "We don't have to figure it all out right now," I said gently. "We'll take it one step at a time." He looked up, eyes shining with something I hadn't seen before, raw vulnerability. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered, "but I don't know if I can handle everything that's going on." "You won't lose me," I promised, squeezing his arm. "We'll figure this out, together." For a long moment, he just looked at me like he was trying to decide whether to believe me. Then slowly he nodded. "Yeah." Okay, it wasn't a perfect solution. Nothing about this was simple. But as the tension in the room eased just enough for us to breathe, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't giving up on him. Not now, not ever. When we walked out of the playroom together, a fragile peace between us, a plan began to form in my mind. We'd find a way to make it work. We had to. The next few days tested everything we'd promised each other. We kept our distance in public, barely nodding in the halls, pretending not to notice each other in class. Every glance that didn't linger hurt more than the one before. It felt like a constant weight pressing on my chest. I'd catch sight of Alex across the cafeteria, surrounded by his friends, laughing like nothing was wrong, but his smile never reached his eyes. And every time our gazes met, even for a heartbeat, I felt the same ache. the one that reminded me how far apart we were slipping. Those few secret moments we did steal weren't the same either. The air between us felt heavier, the tension sharper. He was quieter, distracted, haunted by something I couldn't reach. Whenever I tried to ask, he'd just shut down. "It's fine," he'd say. "Don't worry about it," but I did. I always did. It all came to a head one afternoon about a week after our last talk. We hadn't planned to meet, but I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to see him, to break through the wall he'd built. I found him in the parking lot after school, leaning against his car, eyes downcast, staring at the pavement like it held all the answers. "Alex," I called, walking toward him. He looked up, and the exhaustion in his eyes hit me like a punch to the gut. "We need to talk." He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. "Jake, I'm not in the mood right now." "Too bad," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "We're talking now." His eyes flashed, anger, frustration, maybe both, but he didn't walk away. Instead, he crossed his arms, waiting. "This isn't working," I blurted, the words tumbling out. "This whole laying low thing, it's tearing us apart." He stared at me, expression unreadable. "What do you want me to do, Jake? Pretend everything's fine when it's not? I want you to talk to me," I snapped. "To stop shutting me out like you're the only one who has to carry this. We're in this together, remember?" He turned away, jaw tight. "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is," I said, stepping closer, refusing to back down. "You don't have to do this alone. Whatever's going on, your dad, school, us, we can figure it out. But not if you keep pushing me away." He finally looked at me, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke me. "I'm not trying to push you away," he said, voice cracking. I don't know how to handle all of this." And in that moment, the anger melted out of me, replaced by something deeper. I reached for him, my hand finding his arm. "You don't have to handle it alone," I said softly. "I'm here. But you have to let me in, Alex. You have to trust me." He met my gaze, searching for something. Hope, maybe. Slowly, he nodded, letting out a shaky breath. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." For a second, it felt like we were steady again. Like maybe we'd survive this storm. Then his phone buzzed. He flinched, pulled it out, and the light in his eyes dimmed. "What is it?" I asked, dread coiling in my stomach. "It's my dad," he muttered, shoving the phone back into his pocket. "He wants me home. Now." I wanted to tell him to ignore it, to stay, to fight, but I knew better. Some battles had to be fought at home first. "Go," I said quietly. "We'll talk later." He hesitated, eyes flicking toward me. "Later," he promised, but the word felt hollow. Like we both knew it might not come. I watched him drive away, the ache in my chest heavier than ever. The sky had started to darken, heavy with rain, and by the time I reached my own car, the first drops were already falling. Everything felt like it was slipping, fast, uncontrollable, and I didn't know how to stop it. But I did know one thing. I wasn't ready to give up. Not on him. Not on us. As I drove home, the rain beating against the windshield, I made a silent vow. I'd find a way to reach him again. No matter what it took, the weight in my chest wouldn't ease. Alex sat on the lowest bench of the bleachers, staring out at the empty football field like he was seeing something far beyond it. He didn't notice me until I was standing right in front of him. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady even though my heart wasn't. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes before his expression hardened. "Jake, not now." "I'm not in the mood." "Tough," I shot back. "I'm not leaving until we sort this out." He sighed, rubbing a hand across his face. "There's nothing to sort out. It's just too much." "Everything's a mess." I dropped down beside him, close enough that our shoulders brushed. "I know it's a mess, Alex, but shutting me out isn't going to fix it. We can't keep pretending like this isn't happening." He didn't answer, just stared at the ground, jaw clenched tight. The silence stretched between us, thick with everything we weren't saying. "Why won't you let me in?" I asked softly. "What are you so afraid of?" He flinched, the question hitting deeper than I expected. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," he laughed, a short, hollow sound that didn't reach his eyes. "You think it's that easy? Just talk about it and suddenly everything's fine?" "No," I said quietly. "But it's a start." "I'm here, Alex. I'm not going anywhere. But you have to let me help." He shook his head, shoulders tense. "You don't get it, Jake. You don't know what it's like at home, the pressure, the expectations. It's suffocating. And now, with us, it's just one more thing I can't handle. The words tore out of me before I could stop them. Then don't handle it alone. Let me be there for you. I want to be there for you. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in days, I saw the walls he'd built around himself start to crack. Why do you even care, Jake? Why do you keep pushing? Because I care about you, I said, the truth trembling on my tongue. I don't want to lose you. My voice caught. I think I'm falling for you, Alex. The words hung in the air like static before a storm. For a heartbeat, I thought he might stand and walk away, but then he exhaled shakily, his shoulders slumping. I'm scared, Jake, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm scared of what this means. Of what happens if people find out. Of what happens if I let you in. And it all falls apart. His fear hit me like a punch because I understood it completely. Beneath all the bravado, all the distance, he was just as lost as I was. Maybe even more. I reached out, taking his hand. My grip was firm, grounding. I'm scared too, I admitted. But I'm more scared of losing you. We'll figure it out, Alex. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just have to take it one step at a time. He looked down at our joined hands, the struggle flickering in his eyes, fear fighting against something deeper. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, he breathed. Okay, neither of us moved. We just sat there holding on like we were afraid to let go. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of everything we hadn't dared to say. Then Alex turned to me, his expression softening, vulnerability shining through the cracks. Thank you, he murmured, his voice rough, for not giving up on me. I smiled faintly, shaking my head. Told you I'm not going anywhere. He leaned in, and this time when our lips met, it wasn't desperate or hurried. It was slow, honest. A quiet promise that whatever came next, we'd face it together. When we finally pulled apart, the first drops of rain began to fall, dotting the concrete at our feet. But I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, it felt like we were breathing again. Come on, Alex said, standing and tugging me up by the hand, his fingers lacing through mine. Let's get out of here before we get soaked. I laughed softly, letting him pull me along. The rain was coming harder now, cool against my skin. As we walked away from the bleachers, hand in hand, I knew this was only the beginning. There would be more storms ahead, more moments of doubt and fear. But as long as we faced them together, I believed somehow we'd make it through. James had been suspicious for a while, too observant, too quiet when everyone else was laughing. The way he looked at me that night only confirmed it. The party was a blur of noise and flashing lights. Laughter echoed through the crowded house, music thumping through the walls. I did my best to play along, to smile, to nod, to pretend I wasn't falling apart inside. But my eyes kept drifting back to Alex. He was surrounded by people, a drink always in his hand, his laughter louder than usual. But it wasn't real. I could see it in the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched after every swallow. Something was breaking inside him, and I could feel it like it was breaking inside me, too. Across the room, our eyes met. His were hard to read. Anger, frustration, something else I couldn't name. Then he threw back another shot. That wasn't like him. I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed through the crowd until I was at his side, just as he reached for another bottle. Alex, I said softly, my voice barely cutting through the noise. Maybe you should slow down. He glanced at me, his eyes unfocused but sharp. Why? You worried about me? Yeah, I said, my voice trembling despite myself. I am. This isn't you. He scoffed, turning away. I'm fine, Jake, just having fun. But it wasn't fun. It was pain disguised as laughter. I reached out, grabbing his arm. Come on, let's get out of here. We don't need to... He jerked free, his eyes flashing. Stop, Jake, just stop. I don't need you to babysit me. The words hit like a slap. I'm not trying to... You are! He shouted, voice rising over the music. People nearby turned to look. You're always trying to fix things. To control everything. But guess what? You can't fix this. You can't fix me. The room seemed to tilt. Every sound dulled except his voice. I knew he was lashing out, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. I'm just trying to help, I said, barely holding my voice steady. I'm here for you, he let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. Yeah? Well, maybe I don't want your help. Maybe I'm sick of pretending. Sick of hiding. The words dropped between us like thunder. Conversations around us faltered. People were staring now. I could feel their eyes on us, their curiosity sharpening into something cruel. "Alex, please," I whispered, reaching for him again. "We can talk about this. Just not here." For a second, regret flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone, buried under something defiant. He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Why? So we can go back to hiding? To pretending everything's fine?" He shook his head. "I'm done hiding, Jake. If you want to keep pretending, go ahead. But I'm not doing it anymore." Before I could speak, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the blur of bodies, into the music, into the noise. I stood there frozen. The room spun around me, laughter echoing in my ears like static. The looks people gave me were enough to know. Whatever came next, nothing would be the same. The weekend that followed was a blur of silence and panic. I called, I texted. Nothing. Every hour that passed without an answer twisted the knot in my stomach tighter. By Monday, I was barely holding it together. The halls buzzed with chatter, but beneath it, I could hear something else, whispers. My name, his name. Fragments of our story passed from mouth to mouth, reshaped and sharpened. My worst fear had come true. Then I saw him. Alex stood by his locker, surrounded by his friends. James was there too, leaning in close, his words quiet and poisonous. Alex's shoulders were rigid, his head bowed. I hesitated, my pulse pounding. Then James looked up and met my eyes. His mouth curled into a smirk. "Well, if it isn't Jake," he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Heard you had a bit of a falling out with your boy here." The laughter that followed felt distant and cruel. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I took a step forward. "Alex," I said quietly, ignoring James, "can we talk?" He finally looked up and the anger in his eyes hit me like a blow. But behind it I saw something else. Fear. Regret. He opened his mouth, but James cut in, stepping between us. "I don't think he wants to talk to you, Jake. In fact, I think you should stay the hell away from him." "Back off, James," I snapped. "This is between me and Alex," James smirked. "Is it? 'Cause from where I'm standing, it looks like you've got way bigger problems than that." The words dripped with meaning, and suddenly I understood. Everyone knew. The secret we'd guarded so carefully wasn't a secret anymore. My breath caught. I turned back to Alex, desperate. "Please," I said, voice breaking, "don't do this. We can fix it. We can figure this out. Just talk to me." He shook his head slowly. His expression hardened. "There's nothing to figure out, Jake. It's over." The words hit harder than anything he'd ever said. For a second, the world went silent. The hallway, the whispers, the laughter, it all faded into white noise. "Alex, don't," I whispered. "You don't have to do this," but he didn't look at me. He just turned, grabbed his backpack, and walked away. And I stood there, surrounded by stares and silence, my heart breaking in a place no one else could see. Pieces. James and the others laughed. Their voices sharp and cruel, but I barely heard them. All I could focus on was the sight of Alex's back as he disappeared down the hall, the finality of his departure twisting like a knife in my chest. I stood there for what felt like forever. The whispers and stares of the other students swirling around me like a storm. I had never felt so alone, so completely, utterly lost. Everything I'd fought for, everything we'd built together, it was gone. And I didn't know how to pick up the pieces of the life that had just shattered around me. When the bell rang and the crowd began to fade, I forced myself to move, one step then another, each one heavier than the last. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just needed to escape, to find somewhere I could fall apart without everyone watching. But no matter how far I ran, the pain followed. Constant. Relentless. A reminder of what I'd lost, of what I'd failed to hold on to. And when I finally collapsed into the empty stairwell, the tears came. I knew then that nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were some of the hardest I'd ever known. The whispers grew louder, the stares sharper. Every hallway felt like a spotlight, every glance a silent judgment. But worse than all of that was the emptiness inside me, the space where Alex used to be. He was avoiding me completely now. No texts, no calls, not even a glance in passing. It was as if I'd been erased from his life, and it hurt more than I could ever say. But as much as I wanted to disappear, something inside me wouldn't let me give up. I needed to see him, to talk to him. If it was really over, I had to hear it from him. Not through silence, not through distance. It took days to gather the courage. But I finally found him on a Wednesday afternoon, sitting alone on the bleachers behind the school. A place that once felt like ours, now it felt like a battlefield. "Alex," I called, my voice trembling with fear and determination. He looked up, and for a fleeting second I saw something, surprise, maybe regret, but it vanished just as quickly. He didn't say anything, just watched as I climbed the steps and sat beside him. "I'm not here to argue," I said quietly, fighting to keep my voice steady. I need to know why. Why you ended things the way you did." He sighed, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "Jake, we talked about this. It's too dangerous. It's not just about us anymore. It's about everyone else. What they think. What they'll do if they find out." "I don't care what they think," I shot back, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I care about you, about us. And I know you do too." He didn't answer right away, just stared out at the empty field ahead. "You think this is easy for me?" he finally said, voice low and strained. "You think I wanted to end things like that?" "Then why did you?" I pressed, leaning closer. "Why didn't you just talk to me? We could have figured it out together." He looked at me then, eyes filled with a pain that mirrored my own. "Because I was scared, Jake. Scared of what it would mean if we stopped hiding. Scared of what it would do to us, to you. I didn't want to drag you down with me." "You're not dragging me down," I said firmly. "You never were. We were in this together, Alex. I wanted to be there for you, but you didn't give me a chance." His expression softened, and for the first time since that awful day, I saw him. The Alex I knew. The one who cared, even if he was too afraid to show it. "I know," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry. I just didn't know what else to do." I reached for his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, he took it, his fingers lacing through mine. "We don't have to have all the answers right now," I said softly. "But we can't just give up." "Not like this." He looked down at our joined hands, his thumb tracing slow circles over my knuckles. "What if it doesn't work, Jake? What if we can't handle it?" "Then we deal with it," I said, squeezing his hand. "But I'd rather try and fail than never try at all." He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see the war inside him, the fear, the hope, the longing. Then finally he nodded. A small, fragile smile tugged at his lips. "Okay," he whispered. "We'll try." Relief washed over me so powerfully it almost took my breath away. I wanted to hold him, to tell him I'd never let go, but I knew we needed to rebuild, one step at a time. "One step at a time," I echoed softly. "No more hiding. We'll figure it out, together." He nodded again, his grip tightening as if afraid to lose me all over again. "Together," he said, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt hope. As we sat there under the darkening sky, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, doubts, and storms. But as long as we faced them side by side, I believed we could make it. We had a chance to rebuild, to redeem, to love again. And this time, we weren't going to let it slip away.